Good morning, class. We want to look at the quadratic function. On the quadratic function, which is at times known as the parabola. A parabola is a graph that will always take the shape of a sad or happy face. In grade 10, all parabolas will have a turning point on the y-axis. In other grades, it will be basing on this. The general form of a parabola is y is equal to ax squared plus c, or it can have ax squared plus q. Now, this a, it gives the shape of the graph. It gives the shape of the graph. If the a in the graph, if the shape which can be facing downwards like this, or it can be a graph that is facing upwards like that. These are the two types of graphs that we have. And C and Q, they are y-intercepts. This is where the graph cuts the y-axis. Today we want to look into how to sketch graphs. Now, when you are sketching graphs, first of all, you taste for the shape. Is it concave up, which is a happy graph? We're saying it is happy. Concave up is this one, meaning to say this is when the coefficient, this is when A is positive, it faces upwards. But when A is a number that is negative, it will face downwards like this. Now, the steps that you need to follow on sketching a graph, when you are sketching a graph, first find the y-intercept. That is by making x equal to 0. Secondly, find the x-intercept by making y equal to 0. Right. If A is positive, that means to say when A is positive, meaning to say our graph will be something like this. So, meaning to say it has a minimum turning point. This one has a minimum. If x is positive, it has a minimum. And the graph is facing upwards. This is where we have the minimum. The graph is something like this. This is what we have. Now, if A is negative, the graph will face downwards, implying that this graph here, it has a maximum turning point. It has a maximum turning point. It has a maximum turning point here, and this one has a minimum turning point. Is that clear to you all? Right. Now, we want to sketch the graph of y is equal to 2x squared minus 8. First of all, we want to find the y-intercept. The y-intercept. On the y-intercept, if you want to find the y-intercept, this means to say y-intercept x is going to be 0. On the y-intercept, x is going to be 0. So you have y is equal to 2. In the position of x, now you replace it with a 0, this one, which is minus 8. From this point now, 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 8 is minus 8. We are saying y is equal to minus 8. Now, some may realize, like one learner asked, is it necessary for me to do this if I can immediately see that it's minus 8? No, it's not. This one is immediately, as you notice that this will disappear. You remain with that, negative 8. But now, our coordinates at the x value, because the coordinates, we must have the x value and the y value. This is where the graph cuts the y-axis, and this is our turning point in grade 10. Right, now we want to find, let us find the x-axis intercept. On the x-axis intercept, what is it that we need to do? We are saying x-axis, on the x-axis intercept, on the x-axis intercept, y is going to be 0. On the x-axis intercept, y is going to be 0. This is what we have here, right? Now let us move on. Our equation, we have the equation which is y is equal to the equation that we're dealing with. Y is equal to 2x squared minus 8, which is 2x squared minus 8. Right. We want to find the x-intercept, the x-axis intercept. So the value of y is going to be 0. So you come here in the position of y, you put a 0. And these other ones remain as they are. Hence, from here you must solve for x. Now you want to make x the subject of the formula. You transpose this negative 8 to the other side. It will be a positive 8. So positive 8 is equal to x squared. Now, we want to find the value of x, so we can divide by 2 both sides. If we divide by 2 this side, like we have x squared, divide by 2 on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side as well, you divide by 2. What do we get? Now, you are actually saying 2 into 2, 1. 2 into 2, 1. On the right-hand side, now we remain with x squared. You say 2 into 2, 1. 2 into 8, 4. On the left-hand side, we remain with a 4. But we have not yet, this is the value of x squared, not x. So when you want to find the value of x, you find the square root both sides. You find the square root of x squared and the square root of 4. Now, what is the square root of x squared? It is x. What is the square root of 4? Be careful. This one is plus or minus 2. This is plus or minus 2. What does this mean? It means to say the points that we have, x, when x is minus 2, y is going to be equal to 0, because this is the x-intercept. Or when x is equal to 2, y is equal to 0. This is where this graph cuts the x-axis. This is why we are saying it is the x-intercept. Now, this is not the only way of getting this answer here. Someone, instead of doing it this way, may also have, because from here is the same, may also have said, okay, y-intercept, x-intercept, y is going to be 0. And then you have your, let me use a different color now. Y squared, y, so y, when y is 0, on this other side, you have 2x squared minus 8. Someone may want to say, okay, may want to factorize this. What is the highest common factor of these first two terms? Highest common factor is 2. You say 2 into 2x squared, it will give us an x squared. 2 into minus 8, it is minus 4. Right, you divide both sides by 2, hence on the left-hand side, if you divide 0 by 2, it gives us 0. And then you have on the right-hand side, 2x, you have on the right-hand side, x squared minus 4. Now, you want to find the value of x. On finding the value of x, you can transpose this 4 to the other side so that it becomes a 4, which is x squared. Now, you want to find the value of x, not x squared. You find the square root both sides. You need to be careful. When you are finding a square root, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 4, be careful, it's plus or minus 2, which boils down to the same scenario that we got, and we write it like that. Any more cries there? Now we come into plotting our points, because when we are sketching the graph, you remember the y-intercept, we got y-intercept as our y-intercept was 0 minus 8. This was the y-intercept, right? Which we got up there. It is the first one that we, this is the y-intercept that we got. Now that we have the y-intercept and the x-axis intercepts, in grade 10, since we know that the graph that we have on the y-axis, this will be our turning point. In grade 10, our turning point will always be on the y-axis. It is going to always be on the y-axis. We want to sketch our graph. This is the y-axis. Oh, sorry. This is the x-axis. This being the x-axis, and this is the y-axis. This graph cuts the x-axis intercepts. It is at minus 2. And so it cuts here with minus 2, and we have got a 2. So where the graph cuts the x-axis, it cuts here at minus 2 and at 2. Where does it cut the y-axis? It cuts the y-axis at our y-axis. This one will be minus 8. This is where it cuts the graph. So we are saying on the y-axis, it cuts at minus 8. And now when you are drawing your graph, your graph will start from there. Because remember, we said this graph, the coefficient of x squared is positive. Since it is positive, the graph is a happy graph. It is facing upwards. So on this side, it will continue up there and then there. This is the sketch of the graph. Simply because we notice that on our graph, we notice that A is positive. Since A is positive, the graph faces upwards. Now, this is what we have here. This is the sketched graph that we have. Is that clear? Now, let us go on to the next part. On the next part, we want to sketch the graph of f in x is equal to minus 2x squared minus 2. Take note, we want to, first of all, as we analyze our graph, the coefficient of x is negative 2. So our graph is a third graph. A third graph, it means to say our graph is facing downwards. If it was positive, it was going to face upwards. Now let us find the y-intercept. We want to find the y-intercept. On the y-intercept, we know that x is going to be 0. We substitute into this equation. In the position of x, now we put a 0. So it will be minus 2 times 0 squared minus 2. And 0 squared, it's 0. Minus 2 times minus 2, it's 0. 0 minus 2, it's minus 2. And hence, the y-intercept, the x value is 0 and the y value is negative 2. So it means to say the y-intercept, the coordinates are going to be 0, negative 2. These are the coordinates of the y-intercept. Is that clear to you all? Right. Now let us go on to the x-intercept. On the x-intercept, the y value must be 0 on this one. X-intercept, the y value must be 0. So in the position of, we had y is equal to minus 2x squared minus 2. Now, in this case here, on the position of y, you plug in 0. This is what has been done here. We have a 0, which has been plugged, and then we have minus 2x squared minus 2, which is the one that we have. Now, what did they do? They looked at, do we have any highest common factor here? Yes. What is this? Minus 2. It is this minus 2 that we have. Minus 2 into minus 2x, it is minus 2x squared. It is x squared. Minus 2 into minus 1, it's plus 1. Now, from that plus 1, we realize that since here we had a 0, and now we have x squared plus 1, which is what we have here. So meaning to say, let us transpose a negative 1 to the other side. Sorry, 1 to the other side, it will be negative 1. Now, in this point, if you want to find the value of x, you find the square root both sides. Find the square root here. Now, square root of x squared is x. The square root of negative 1, this one is not real. Some calculators will write math error, some will write syntax error. This you must interpret and realize that this one is not real. So the graph does not cut the x-axis at all. It does not have any intercept with the x-axis. So meaning to say it is a hanging. But what we know that we have a turning point. The turning point that we had, right, now what we have our x-axis, we have our y-axis. This one is 0, -1, -2, -1 here, because it is on the negative side of the y-axis. We can extend it like that. And then we can have 1, 2, 3, going on like that. 3 and so forth. On the left-hand side, we have -1. Here we have -2. We also have -3. They continue like that. Up there, we're going to have positive numbers. We said our turning point was 0, -2. Since it is 0, -2, this is our turning point. Turning point and being the y-intercept. And we noticed that since the coefficient of x squared is negative, we said our graph is a straight graph like that. So this implies that the graph that we are going to have here, it is going to be something like this. It is a graph that is facing downwards like that. It continues this way and that way. It is a straight graph. This is how the graph looks like. Is that clear? Right. And always remember to label your graph if you have sketched it, which is -2x squared, -2x squared, -2. There is no wrong graph until and unless it has been wrongly labeled. Now let us look at what they have here. Right. This is what we have. Our graph, it has a turning point here and it turns there. If the question says sketch the graph, it does not have to be an accurate graph. The graph must not be accurate, but it must show the general shape of the graph and the intercepts. The intercepts. The intercepts, that is the y-intercept. It must be y-intercept. My y-intercept. Intercept. It must be y-intercept. And x-intercept. X-intercepts. If they are there. If the x-intercepts they are there, those ones must be indicated. If they are not there, like in this scenario, well, no problem. Intercepts. Right. These ones must be clear. Now, any more questions? Okay. When you are kicked out of the lesson, please rejoin. We have a double period. If we have a double period, after the first 40 minutes, you will be kicked out. Please rejoin. I will admit you. No problem. Right. Now let us look at, I want you on the second period to work out this exercise. Complete exercise 4 on page 301. During the second period, if you've got a question, then the exercise is exercise 4. Exercise 4 on page, exercise 4 on page 301. Kevin Smith. Kevin, this is on Kevin Smith textbook, right? That's okay. Okay, there's someone who has a question, all right. Shame.